Some of the most fascinating scientific discoveries happen when we connect the dots between things that seem, well, totally unrelated. And recently, scientists made one of those incredible connections, linking a volcano, a famine, and the single deadliest pandemic in all of human history. So let's dive into this. It's a 700-year-old mystery. To really get the stakes here, we have to start with the sheer scale of the Black Plague, 75 million. And that's the low-end estimate for how many people died. In Europe alone, we're talking about wiping out up to 60% of the entire population. It was, for all intents and purposes, an apocalyptic event. So for a long time, we've known the basics, right? The culprit was this bacterium, Yersinia pestis, and it was carried by infected fleas that lived on rodents. We know the pandemic raged from about 1347 to 1353, and it completely changed the course of human history. But here's the mystery that's been bugging historians for centuries. Europe had rats, and it definitely had fleas long before 1347. So what happened? What was so special about that exact moment in time that caused this sudden, catastrophic explosion of disease? Well, the answer, it turns out, was hidden in some very, very unexpected places. The first hint didn't come from some ancient text or a dusty old archive. Nope. It came from the trees themselves, which, believe it or not, kept a silent, perfect record of the past. And this is where Dr. Ulf Bunting, a tree ring researcher, enters the story. While he was studying these ancient trees, he noticed something really weird in the years right before the plague hit. He realized the trees were telling a story, and frankly, it wasn't a happy one. And the consistency of what he found was just stunning. For 3 straight years, 1345, 1346, and 1347, the tree rings all showed the exact same thing: abnormally cold and wet summers. A sudden, really severe climate shift had slammed into Europe just before the plague arrived. But what on earth could cause something like that?
Well, the answer to that question wasn't on Earth's surface. It was high, high up in its atmosphere. And all the evidence was pointing to a single global catastrophe. By analyzing volcanic sulfur signatures trapped deep inside ice cores, scientists confirmed it. Around the year 1345, somewhere in the tropics, an absolutely massive volcano had erupted. I mean, this was an event so powerful, it literally changed the weather for the entire planet. So here's the crucial domino effect. The eruption shoots tons and tons of ash and sulfur way up into the stratosphere. This massive cloud then spreads around the globe, blocking sunlight and causing what scientists call a volcanic winter. And just like that, global temperatures plummet. It's a brilliant and terrifying illustration of how one event in one part of the world can have devastating effects everywhere else. Now, for Europe, those cold, wet summers that the trees were talking about meant one thing: absolute disaster. Crops failed all across the continent, and the result was a widespread and devastating famine, which weakened the entire population and set the stage for what was about to happen next. So, a natural disaster had struck. But this next part of the story is all about how humans reacted to it, a reaction that would, completely unknowingly, open the door wide for the plague. With local greenfields failing left and right, the powerful Italian maritime republics like Venice and Genoa, well, they did what they did best. They turned to trade. They fired up their vast, long-distance networks to import massive shipments of grain to feed their starving populations. And where did they get this grain? From the Black Sea region. And here, right here, is the fatal connection. Because this was a region where the plague bacterium, Yersinia pestis, was known to be endemic. It had been quietly circulating in the local rodent population for years. And just like that, the deadly chain reaction began. The famine triggers massive grain imports. Those grain shipments, in turn, become infested with plague-carrying fleas. And here's the critical part. These fleas could survive for months in the grain itself. That allowed them to endure the long sea voyage and arrive alive and very infectious directly into Italy's bustling port cities. So now all the pieces are on the board. We have a volcano, a famine, a massive trade operation, and a deadly stowaway. Let's put it all together. The timeline it's just undeniable. It's almost chilling. Around 1345, the volcano erupts. In late 1347, the grain ships, the very ships dispatched to solve the famine, arrive in Venice. And just a few weeks after that,
The first human cases of the Black Plague appear in Europe. It is the aha moment that finally solves the mystery.
This is why 1347 was the perfect storm. The grain ships provided a direct superhighway for the disease. These infected fleas bypassed the slower traditional land routes and were delivered right into the heart of Europe's most crowded and now famine-weakened urban centers. They were truly the deadliest stowaways in history.
You know, what's so amazing about this discovery is that we couldn't have made it by just studying one thing. It took scientists from completely different fields. I'm talking tree ring experts, ice core chemists, medieval historians, and epidemiologists, all of them working together, sharing their unique pieces of the puzzle to finally see the whole terrifying picture. So it really leaves us with this final thought. A catastrophic climate event, followed by a globalized human response, created the absolute perfect conditions for a pandemic to ignite. It shows us, with terrifying clarity, just how interconnected our world really is, and how a 700-year-old story can still serve as a powerful, powerful warning for us today.